My name is Matt. I'm a child of God and personal worth who struggles with drugs, anxiety, low self-esteem, depression, and alcohol, and tonight I choose recovery. Please join me in a prayer. Heavenly Father, I come before you humbly asking you for your guidance. To guide me through this testimony, I ask you that I guide at least one person closer to their recovery and knowing you with the words I speak. Please let me be open and honest with the people before me, as you may be able to touch all these people and show them that recovery is the path of life. Amen. All right, my recovery date is May 14, 2019. I started to struggle with drugs when I was in my teens. I started to struggle with low self-esteem, anxiety, and depression way before that. Some of the things that contributed to that were being the oldest child, which held more responsibilities, not having good friendship skills, plus it was hereditary. My sister has it, my mom has it, and now I have it. So yes, I believe in the saying alcohol is a disease that you can be born with. I was a good kid in school, had average grades, but little to no friends. I struggled with making friends due to low self-esteem. I lived in an average home. Being the oldest of 12 had its pluses and minuses. I was picked to be the first rewarded, but at the same time disciplined harsher. My parents divorced when I was about 12. I lived with my dad, and we bounced around a lot from places to live. My dad is my rock and always has been. My mom is my mom. She has and does always want what is best for me, even if she doesn't like it or love it. I started smoking pot about 15 or 16 with my friend Anthony, and we would always find trouble or it would find us. Weed was my friend until I found ecstasy. Man, I thought that was the best thing since sliced bread. I had so much fun and I found so much trouble doing it. It also obliterated my low self-esteem. When I would do drugs, nothing or no one else mattered. Throughout my life, I've been used for either my money or my car, and just thought it was payment for having friends. I went into the Army when I was 21, and that's when I was introduced to drinking. Beer was the thing. If you weren't cool, you didn't drink. I remember leaving final formation on Friday, going directly to the PX for a case or two of beer, not stopping until Sunday night. And if not that, would head off post to the closest bar or strip club and close it down. See, for me, beer was my pick-me-up. I could talk to the girls, crack jokes with the guys, and think I was Kenny Chesney on karaoke. I found something that I could do that was accepted and helped my self-esteem, anxiety, and depression. So naturally, drinking followed me after the Army. Throughout my adulthood, I would drink occasionally, but when I did, it was to a point to forget what I was dealing with at the time. When I got married, the drinking decreased. My anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem increased. I drank in high school, drank in Army, and just drank to fit in. My ex-wife helped me decrease that a lot. So she was the best thing that happened to me until our daughter Emma came along in 2009. That's when my drinking increased again. Emma was born with osteogenesis imperfecta. It's a brittle bone disease that makes the bones brittle. She had breathing and eating problems. She had laryngomalacia, bronchiomalacia, and tracheomalacia, which means all the tissues and muscles around her bronch, her trachea, and her esophagus were all floppy. She needed a trach tube for at least the first year of her life, and she was on the ventilator for about the same amount of time. One time before she was when she was in the hospital, she almost died, and I had to bring her back to life. It was a very complex environment for both at the hospital and once she made it home. She was and is the light of my life and my world. I sometimes blame myself for the problems she faced due to my life decisions and me not wanting to adopt. I found myself leaving the house a lot and drinking increased. But when I was home, I was the best and most attentive father and husband that there was. When we were divorced 6 years of marriage, after 6 years of marriage, due to the lack of not being home as much as I was wanted or needed. One of the worst feelings is to come home after work and see the house empty with wife and daughter gone. Drinking increased again, and I'm assuming we can see a pattern there. I do not handle traumatic events, anxiety, depression, etc. well. And until I got sober, I did not understand that there was an alternative. My anxiety and depression were at its worst at this point. Struggled with any help for a few years, drinking, bouncing around from jobs until it landed me a job where I was introduced to meth. Once I started it, immediately I was hooked. I thought, wow, way to lose weight, increase esteem, decrease my anxiety and depression, also without the side effects of drinking. I'm here to tell you that that was the worst mistake of my life, thinking that I could fix everything with meth. I did meth for about 3 or 4 years. I reached my lowest point when I started IV drug use. As you can see, I like tattoos, but deathly afraid of needles. So that shows you how strong my addiction had over me. Yes, it took away my fears, but more importantly, it took away my ability to choose healthy decisions. The drugs had such a strong hold on me, I grew to a point that I did not care where I did them or who saw me. Again, that stronghold of the IV drug use. My IV drug use did and still has a strong hold on me. I think it triggers regularly, but I remember where I come from and where I'm going. It helps. It also has a strong hold on me health-wise. My blood flow isn't what it was. My blood pressure is high. Locations on my body where I used hurt. That's when I knew I was done. All during this time, I lived in a trap house, but had a car and a motorcycle, and I had a place to live that I was paying for. I'll say that again. I had a car, a motorcycle, and a place to live that I was paying for. The addiction had such a strong hold on me, I did everything I could to stay as close to it and spend the least amount of my money for it. That is when I started selling drugs to help pay for my habit and to make friends. I also stole from stores, did tag swaps, made excuses at stores, everything just to save a few bucks. There were a few times where I would be making a sale that a bunch of red flags appeared, but I didn't care because I knew when I got back with the money, I'd be getting drugs. I used people to get what I wanted and had some inappropriate relationships with people I would normally not have done had I been sober, or at least not on meth. I did a lot of things I regret doing while I was on drugs. As a result, I lost my car, motorcycle, and place to live because of the power the drugs had on me. I moved out of the trap house I was living in, but it was too late. From shooting up to selling to a cop, my life had caught up with me. On May 14th, I was arrested for selling to a confidential informant or cop, and it changed my life, but for the good this time. But once more, my drug brain got a hold of me. Right before I was arrested, I shot up one more time thinking that would get me through all of it. I'm here to tell you that it didn't. While I was in jail, when I found CR, or maybe it found me. CR came into the jail for service and instantly felt a wave of relief. During that service, I wept at the thought of what I've done, who I had become, and what was in store for me if I stick to this recovery program. While I was in jail, I started reading the AA book. Then one day, Kip came into the CPUs. The CPUs are the Core Programs Unit, which is a series of circus-like tents out of at the Core facility out in Ortez. And if you're privileged to get chosen to be out there, they house the trustees, and they also have a couple programs. One of the programs is called Life Skills, when you learn how to become a better person, a son, a father, etc. Right next door is what they called the God Pod. It was a religious, faith-based program where you could strengthen your relationship with God. These two programs show how I was privileged, or better yet, shown grace from God to start my sobriety program. Now, for those of you that have not been in jail, people tend to look down upon you if you're doing something while you're in jail. They consider to look down on you if you're doing something what they consider to be fake or trying to better yourself. So when the guards announced this meeting called AA, I looked around the dorm to see if anybody was going. A few guys went, so I tried it. Man, I was happy that I did. From the first time going, listening to Kip and the other men talk in the circle, I thought that this recovery thing was right up my alley. I started going every week and learning about being sober, the 12 steps, the stories, getting a sponsor, and service work. See, again, I had to make sure, due to not being picked on, not to do too much, but it was hard. It was so hard not to. So it was hard to work on the 12 steps, but I made a promise to myself and God that when I would get out, I would ask Kip to be my sponsor. I soon, instead of getting out, I went to prison, but continued to read both the AA and NA book. Prison is like jail, but in regards to keeping an image, not being called out, and not being think you were weak. But I still did it. We had an AA group of 3 men out of probably at least 1,200 men in the prison that met each week. It's not that it was all that was allowed. It was all the men that could or would be interested in for whatever reason. I also attended church because not only was it something that I wanted, but the big book tells us to talk and relate to a higher power. Prison life is a hard time to deal with. Through trying to stay sober and doing what is needed to, you were pressured into drugs, fights, etc. But with God's help and the AA program, I was able to persevere. I got out of prison on September of 2022 and immediately went to CR and asked Kip to be my sponsor. And I still remember him saying 2 things. 1, are you willing to go to any lengths to get it? And 2, will you call me every day? Well, the first one, I'm still willing to do it even to this day. And the second one started out well, but I do see and talk to him regularly. See, a sponsor doesn't ask you to call him or her because they want to be nosy or tell them every little detail about your day. Some people think that, but it lets them have better understanding of how your sobriety is going. You know the saying, they have something what I want? That was instantly what I found in my sponsor. The happiness, joyful, loving, happy to help attitude gave me hope that one day I could do that too. When I started working on the steps, it was slow going because I didn't know how. But once I got to believe, trust, and know my sponsor, things started making sense. The hardest steps for me were 4 and 5. Making a searching and fearless moral inventory, and admitting to us, another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. These 2 steps showed how vulnerable I had to become in order to keep my sobriety. But when I got to step 9, making direct amends to such people whenever possible, except to do so when it injured them or others, was when I really tested it. I was tested in not only my sobriety, but also my faith. It was easy looking back when I only had to admit to myself and my sponsor that I was a screw-up. Others is a different story. It's really hard to tell a loved one all your skeletons. My fears and resentments were very strong. When I did my 4th and 5th, I met with my sponsor on the back porch of his house and opened myself to judgment, but there was none to be had. I also spent time taking and giving my fears to my higher power. I'm telling you, after going through that was the best experience I've ever had happen to me, right up there with my daughter being born. He made me feel so open and willing that going into it, there were 2 things that I told myself that I would never tell anybody in my whole entire life. But when he said, is there anything that I would take to my grave, I just blurted them out. I felt that comfortable. That's what the most important thing to have is in a sponsor: openness and trust. Someone who understands the struggles, someone who lets you know that they have been there and nothing you say will surprise them. Someone who lets you know you are exactly where you need to be at this moment. I am truly blessed to have the AA and CR program. Matthew 5:10 says, "Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for their fears in the kingdom in the heaven. My contact with God has strengthened significantly. I understand him more. He is my light and my forgiver. My anxiety and depression has decreased a lot with meds. I'll be the first to tell you that I'm not afraid to take meds to keep myself in an equal keel. Some people don't believe in them, but I do believe that I need them to keep myself on a level rock. I'm also not as worried about things. My relationships with my mom and my dad have soared. I just give my fears to God and his will be done. They are so happy with me and the man I have become. I continue to fellowship with friends, which I have many of, go to meetings, and do service work. Service work is a big part of my sobriety, actually the biggest, probably. I enjoy helping others, but like standing in front of you all and sharing my story, I'm able to help someone understand that I know where you have been and where you can go if you trust in Jesus. I am a happy man now. When I went through some of my steps, my sponsor was able to help me let go of my hurts, habits, and hang-ups that were weighing me down. I believe Jesus is happy with who I've become as well. So far that is because I believe Jesus is happy with who I've become as well. So far that is because I still have a long way to go. I enjoy talking to Jesus every day and thanking him for his sacrifice, his forgiveness, and his love. I tend to not let things upset me or frustrate me like they once did. I think for myself and treat my body as I know I deserve. I enjoy my life and spending time with my family. I'm not perfect, but as they say, one day at a time, right? I would like to end by saying thank you. Thank you to each one of you for being here and being supportive of me. It's hard for someone like me with my problems to get in front of you all and be vulnerable, but with each of your help, I did it. Seeing all of you helps me remember that I'm not alone in this addiction. My hope is today that I have at least one person understand that there is hope and a new way of life when we choose recovery, and you were able to relate to my story. Matthew 3:18 and 9 says, other seeds fell on good soil and produced grain, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. Still other seeds fell on fertile soil, and they produced crops that was 30, 60, and even 100 times as much has been planted. I picked that verse to show that the hard work can change when your product of your work from grain to crop with God's help and multiply tremendously. Change is possible with growth and work. Thank you for all listening, and I love you, each and every one of you.